combine to me is mostly for people trying to somehow get themselves out of the third day to the second day. To me, that's what it's almost all about. The quarterback's not working out, irrelevant. I mean, they need to show up and get through the interview part of it. Okay,
That's what Shador is doing, I believe. I think Cam Ward might be throwing. I'm not sure.
It doesn't matter. Who cares if you're throwing at it? What? Okay.
Yeah.
And even pro days don't mean much. Okay, you want to know two people who had two of the worst pro days you could possibly ask for? That people walked away and went, "Oh my God." Lamar Jackson and Peyton Manning. Well, guess what? They're both on their way to the Hall of Fame. Okay? I mean, that tells you everything. Like, okay, what you had? Peyton Manning's pro day was not good.
No.
Okay, Lamar Jackson's pro day was not good.
You know who?
Guess what? Everybody would want him.
You know who had a great pro day, by the way, and who got drafted second overall in a draft?
Mitchell Trubisky.
Zach Wilson.
It was Zach.
He threw a 60-yard throw off his back foot, and he was touted as the greatest thing since sliced bread.
Everybody talks about that. I watched the games. And in watching the games, I was like, I don't know. I don't see it. And the one that really got me was, because of that particular year, was BYU played that game in Coastal Carolina. I didn't think he was good at all.
No.
Well, Coastal Carolina, no offense, that is not the Green Bay Packers defense.
No.
They may wear teal, but it's not the Packers defense. And so this pro day stuff, it's really important on pro day. That you go out and you're somebody that's trying to get yourself from free agent to third day or third day to second. You rarely do anything that goes, hey, second, he's a first-round pick. Now, if you're around the neighborhood of a first-round pick, you're going to stay in the neighborhood of a first-round pick. It's all based on what people need at that point. Like, look at Quinyon Mitchell of Toledo. Okay? Well, the Eagles didn't have to do anything to get him because people in front of them had all these other needs. Their need was to get a corner. And they just kind of sat there and waited till it was finally their turn because nobody else was drafting corners.
Yeah.
So they got him. Same thing with Cooper DeJean in the second round.
Yeah.
So the combine thing, the most exciting thing about the combine is when Rich Eisen runs his 40 for St. Jude.
Yes.
Which is a great thing that he does. Not a good thing. It's a great thing. It raises a lot of money. We always have referred to it as the Underwear Olympics. And, we make a big deal out of everything. And, for example, I talked to Rob King yesterday, who does the Steelers games. And Rob was driving out to the Combine and to take a look at guys. Well, that's great because a lot of this, because we focus so much in the first round, but it's all those other rounds that make a difference.
It's the third rounders, fourth rounders, the Jason Kelces of the world who are drafted in the third, I believe. Like, it's those guys who matter and who make a difference on a team.
Now this is way back. You're going back 40 plus years here. But that draft for the Steelers got Stallworth. They got Mike Webster. They got
not too bad.
Every time you turned around, they were drafting a Hall of Fame guy. I think Lynn Swann may have been their first pick, but that's the one that everybody's dramatic, excited about. Look at this past year with the Steelers. Zach Frazier was a second-round pick. Guess what? He was the stalwart on the offensive line. The first-round pick played one game. Now, I think he's going to be a good player. He just has to be healthy. But that's what this is all about. This is not like your team, the Saints. What will they do at quarterback? Because there's a lot of talk they're not going to keep Derek Carr. Well, what are they going to do at quarterback? Will they sign somebody? Free agency always sets up your draft anyway. So in other words, the Eagles had signed 3 corners in free agency last year. They may not have drafted Quinyon Mitchell.
A lot of this is them getting just an up-close look at someone that they can't otherwise see, being able to do the medicals, because that is something that
medicals are important.
Big piece of it. And then the third party said the interviews, which is what matters a lot because it tells you about someone's character and you can kind of you can talk to them. Versus during the season, you kind of don't have that ability almost at all. So it's just you get an actual chance to sit down and meet a human being.
So here's the only issue I have with the interview part is this. There are some people that are not very good at interviewing people. I think people are going to say aren't very good at being interviewed. No, it's the other way around.
Yes.
There are some people that just ask some of the stupidest questions on the face of the earth, where you sit back and go, what? Just let the people who are making the decision ask the questions. And if you have a good question, ask it. Don't just ask random questions. And that's one of the problems that you have in some of these interviews. So certain random questions are asked, and like the people who are asked the questions are looking around like, what does that have to do with football?
People are like, if you could rob a bank, how would you do it? And it's like, what? Why is that a question?
It's not a question.
Yeah.
Right?
The fact that those are the questions being asked, it's like, what?
Right.
It should be a conversation.
Right. It doesn't have to do with anything. I mean, look, I know Herb Brooks, for example, in the 1980 Olympic team, had him take a test, the whole thing. And one of the famous things was Jimmy Craig, the goalie, didn't take the test. Right. And he was going to bench him after the 10-3 loss to the Soviet Union in Madison Square Garden. He says, is this all about the fact I wouldn't take the test? He goes, no. He says, the guy I want is the guy that wouldn't take the test. You went, oh. All right. So that's what this is about. So Abdul Carter's making the right decision. Tyler Warren's draft status is not going to change no matter what happens here. It's going to be some other guys that need to showcase themselves, help themselves out, get themselves drafted on the second day, get themselves drafted on the third day, and put themselves in a position to make a team. And so I feel like the March 28th one, if you're a player for Penn State that's invited to both the Combine and can then work out again on the 28th, go ahead and do it. For example, Micah Parsons and Odafe Owe did not run in Indianapolis, but they ran here. And I was standing there that day as they both went flying by, and I went, I think they're going to get a couple first rounders out of this. I mean, you could just see it. And it just, little things like that clinch a thought process.
Yeah.
Right? As to what people see. And he also, look, and there's so much video on everybody today that you should have a pretty good idea what your board looks like. Now, does it become more difficult on day 2 when you're sitting there and you have to make that third round pick and there's guys off the board you wanted?
But then you've got those 2 guys you got to see at one of these combines or pro days. You're like, you know what? I liked what I saw out of him. Maybe it wasn't let's say film on player A and player B is the same.
Sure.
And I see both of them work out a little bit. And I'm like, you know what? I kind of liked more what I saw from player A. I think he'd translate better to what we want to do. We take him because we got to at least see him up close, like the other guy, but we like his makeup more for us.
Right. Are there a lot of things like, how high you jump? I mean, these are all measurements. And and Penn State does its own combine with the players every year. And there's like today was agility. They do a lot of agility stuff. And, you probably have seen the tweets of who the positional winners were. To me, the single most significant one was Zariah Fisher at defensive end. Zariah this is now knee injury number 2 he's had to come back from. I thought at the end of last year, I thought he was moving really well, right? To see him come out, and he goes out and he has a good day like he had this morning. That's one, and now the whole thing is, tomorrow will be a day of recovery. Then they've got to go out and do it again on Thursday. But, that was of all of them. So we've gone through the college football playoff. We talked about the Combine. Abdul Carter's not going to work at the Combine. That's perfectly fine.
Yeah. He's sitting there. He's going to get his name called real early in Green Bay this year, the draft?
Yeah, Green Bay. Yeah, Green Bay. Next year's in Pittsburgh.